All right, I would like to call this meeting of the Development Review Board to order. I'm Phil Newbeck. I am filling in for Jeff York, so if I screw up, please bear with me. I'm going to start by reading the agenda. We have two pieces of new business. The first is a request by Bradley, and I'm going to screw up his last name. I apologize, Malouin.
Yep.
For a conditional use review for a new camp. Property is at 64 Hirams Crossing in the Rural Agricultural Residential Zoning District. And the second is a request by Marjorie Minot for a sketch plan for a 3-lot subdivision. That property is in the low-density residential district and the forestry district. We're also going to have one piece of old business, and that's approve the minutes of March 13th, 2024. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding. It'll be conducted in an orderly manner, consistent with our rules of procedure. We're going to walk you through the process. The first thing I want to do is ask members of the board if there has been any ex parte communication, any conflict of interest that would keep you from being impartial.
No.
I've worked on the Malouin property prior to him owning it. And after he owned it, I got the permits for his apartment above his garage. I've never met him personally. But I don't expect
But you have
any.
nothing to do with this
Correct.
project.
I just want to point that out.
Yes, I appreciate
Yeah.
that. All right, now comes a bit of boilerplate, and that is talking about interested persons. And can I ask all the folks who's come, could you please sign in? There are 2 sign-in sheets. If you could hopefully sign in on the one that's relevant to the case you're here for. So look at the top. So the interested person spiel that we always give, lots of people may be interested in zoning applications, but only statutorily defined interested persons can appeal a decision. If an interested person doesn't appeal in a timely manner, they're bound by the decision. And the definition of an interested person can be the applicant, or if the applicant doesn't own the property, the person who does own the property. A person owning or occupying property in the immediate neighborhood, that's the subject of the decision, and can demonstrate a physical or environmental impact on their interest. Or any 10 persons, voters or landowners, who by signed petition to the DRB allege that the decision, if confirmed, will violate the municipal plan or bylaw, and they have to designate one person as their representative. So the next piece that I need to do, I said before, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and because of that, I need to swear in all the people who want to speak. We're going to do things a little bit differently today in that those of you who are on Zoom, I'm going to ask when I read the oath, I'm going to ask everybody here to say I do. And those of you who are on Zoom, I'd like you to type I do in the chat, just as recognition that you've agreed. So I hereby swear that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
All right. We're going to start with the Bradley's conditional use application. So come on up and tell us what you need to tell us.
Sure.
So I have the site plan up. I don't think you need, I mean, I think that's. It's gonna, you don't have a whole lot more in the application, but I think that's probably what you can use to reference with regards to questions and things along those lines.
Yep.
If you
Sure.
need, I have the complete application. If you need more, let me know, but.
Okay. So quick kind of summary, our house and, primary residence is off of Hirams Crossing, which is the north side of the property, which is separated by the stream. It's more or less impossible to get from one side to the other, but we do have about 350 plus linear feet of road frontage on Tar Box itself. Relatively flat area. So last year we ended up putting a camper over there that we plan on utilizing for our family. We have 2 little kids, but we're going to be using it for our own use as well. But we put a camper over there. It's off grid. Guests are accessing it from Tar Box, but essentially we are utilizing Airbnb to host guests. or family members, friends and stuff visiting from out of town. So pretty much our application is just asking for permission to have that campsite over there. It's off grid. And I can kind of go into details if there's questions. But it's a really old vintage Airstream. It's kind of like glorified tent more than, no, there's no electricity, it's solar power, set up and things like that, but, yeah, I guess any questions that might lead me into more detail or?
So I'll open it up to members of the board here.
Yeah, would you mind, Chris, I don't know if we can zoom in, just orient us a little bit here. It's tough to tell from what we're looking at, like where's the road, is the house, where's the campsite, where's the river coming through?
Sure, okay.
Is there a laser pointer?
I don't have a pointer.
Oh.
So here's the residence off of Harmers Crossing.
Yep.
Okay, this is the primary residence. This here is the river.
Yep.
Okay, so we scroll down, the property goes all the way up. This is tar box.
Okay.
Along here. Okay, and then if we look here, this is tar box road. This is essentially the site area
Got it.
of the proposed, the location for the proposed use. So we scroll out, you get an idea of that
Okay.
orientation.
That's clear. Okay, thanks.
And can I ask what kind of driveway, road, whatever leads to the camp?
Yeah, so there was like a very small pre-existing pull-off before from the previous landowner, I think just where the previous landowner was like utilizing that area to get timber and stuff for firewood, so there was a little pull-off and some sawhorses and stuff where I think they used to do log splitting or whatever, but I kind of brought in a little bit of rock to just beef it up so that it's drivable, and that way when I pull the Airstream in, it doesn't sink into the ground. But really just a little bit of geotech and rock just to make sure it's not gonna sink on me, especially in the spring when I pull it over there. But it's wide enough for cars to get on comfortably. Yeah, nothing too crazy.
Is there a curb cut there now on the road?
There was an existing curb cut, so the highway supervisor was called. He went to the site and said, yeah, it's no problem, you can continue you can improve. You got an access, so you can go ahead and put stone and that sort of stuff down.
Mhm.
And so that did go through the necessary review. There wasn't a new curb cut pulled for that, but there was an existing.
There was one there.
Does that view, Chris, also represent the fire department?
No, I didn't, the fire department did not review this application.
Is there any septic on that?
No, we were utilizing a third-party company, just like a Porter John company to come pump out the camper, Black Tank. Since getting into this process, we talked to the state water and wastewater department, I think is what it's called, and they said that we wouldn't be able to use water in this kind of setup, so we're gonna kind of go more off grid and not provide water other than means of just like fire suppression for people having campfires. But we're probably gonna be getting either a composting or incinerated toilet that meets the state standards, which incinerating toilets are not cheap, so we're gonna be looking into it more, but yeah, it'll just be that kind of setup for toilet facilities.
Where do you envision that being on the site?
What's that?
Toilet.
The toilet, there, I have two options right now. I'm leaning towards having a small outhouse just right adjacent to the camper. So that way I can hook up the propane to it, because it'll be an incinerating toilet that runs off of propane, not electric. Alternatively, the RV mechanic that we worked with a little bit for replacing some of the appliances. He has spec'd out a incinerating toilet that would fit inside the camper, but it's gonna be pretty tight. So I have kind of two different options. I would rather keep it in a little kind of fake outhouse next to the propane tank, but still adjacent to the camper, right next to it.
And that half moon notch?
Yeah.
That's the camper site?
Yeah, the square kind of inside that little half moon is representing the camper. It's a 24-foot Airstream.
So the state said you don't need a state permit because it's not a structure, it's got
It's
wheels.
not a structure. We haven't.
But that's
attached anything to
provided
it.
you use the bathroom in the camper, right?
Because
you need a permit for incinerating toilets, outhouses, all that.
like outside of
When you
the,
decide to go that route, right?
yeah, I'm not, I didn't get into whether or not it's gonna be inside or outside. I
Right.
just know that, like, if I had a composting or incinerating toilet, I mean, you know better than me, but
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's just my understanding, like, just my experience with it, is that that's a camper. it's not a structure, so the state doesn't have any jurisdiction over it until you start doing stuff outside.
Okay, so I probably would have
You
just
will,
be-
but you'll find that out when you go to the next process, yeah.
Okay, got it.
Now, in terms of use.
Yep.
Personal use, renting out, commercial, what is the?
Specifically, 99.9% just Airbnb. Last year, out of, less than 180 nights, we had, I think 80 something nights booked. Most guests were staying for 2 nights. Yeah, so it's only about 80 nights per season, at least last year, based on usage. And then we'll be using
And
it.
there's a charge associated with that.
I'm just curious, I don't know, what prompted you to come for us today if you've already been using this as a camping site,
Yeah,
and renting it out, like what, how did you land here today?
Chris, you want to answer
I sent him a letter,
that?
said essentially you could be in violation,
Gotcha.
because, this is a use being operated.
Right,
And we have some people are very responsive. Some people aren't very responsive. Brad was very responsive. So after he got the letter, things pretty much shut down on site.
gotcha.
And worked to figure out what exactly he wanted to put together for an ask and move forward. And so he took some time to develop that and submitted an application.
Okay.
So.
Great.
Okay, Brad, a couple of things. What do you have that these guests are abiding to in terms of rules or?
So,
Aside from Airbnb, whatever they may have.
so at least as an Airbnb listing, you can put your own rules, whether or not somebody follows them, of course, but we don't accept direct booking or automatic booking. So every single guest that's booking, we look to make sure they have other ratings and people don't say they're bad, guests, other hosts. So we kind of screen the guests first. Other, simple house rules, if you will,
Yeah.
on our listing is, quiet hours between, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. and things like that. Everybody's been very respectful of the space, and we haven't had any damage or trash, outside the camper or anything like that. So, but really you can just on Airbnb list what your rules are. That's really it.
And then the other is, what's the sighting to the house to the south? No, I guess that's west of you on Tar Box.
So everything to the east, there's really no other landowners to the east.
Mm-hmm.
To the west, there's one landowner with a single family house. And to the south is a landowner that abuts the access road to the University of Vermont Forest.
Is the camper visible from those 2 houses?
So we parked it as kind of we didn't want people messing with it, so we try to park it in a spot that's kind of in a small depression. So I think during the summer months, most people don't even know it's there. Just probably the top half, if that, you can kind of see from the road. There's quite a big bump, oh, you've seen the
Yeah.
kind of where it is,
Yeah.
yeah. So, it's visible to, from the road if you're looking for it, it's white, so it sticks out a little bit.
What can the neighbors see?
The neighbors I don't believe the neighbors could see it when there's leaves on the trees. I think you'd have to be. I mean, I know the neighbors know it's there, but I think there's quite a bit of forest in between from the access road to the camper to the west, the nearest house. There's a decent amount of trees. We really were careful selecting anything else we cut down in there, just to make sure there was some sort of visual screening and not go crazy cutting for firewood and such. But
Where is the Smolinski residents relative to this? Because they expressed a concern about smoke.
that's the west one.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how many feet just that you think they are from that?
It's probably
This board
A
wants me to
good
pull up an
300.
aerial if I can.
Yeah.
it's probably 300 to 350, if I had to guess, from their building to the campfire pit, something like that. I haven't measured, but
And what kind of a fire are they? Is it one of these little fire pits, the metal ones?
I made a small circle just out of the native rocks that were there, and I kept it pretty small because I didn't want people to get out of hand. It's probably 36 inches in diameter, I would say. So you're not really putting anything too crazy big in there. I did see that comment and I looked online a little bit. I could like go towards a metal ring with one of those covers. That way, when you're done having a fire, you just put it on and it's not gonna just keep smoking for 30 hours, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if this is a frequent issue for them, gotta
Sure.
do something, gotta try something,
Yeah,
Try
that
to
was the only
paint it.
thing I could think of is just
Yeah.
one of those big metal rings that has a metal
A
cover.
little smaller, like 30-inch.
Yeah.
and maybe move it. I
Yep.
don't know. Yeah.
Yep.
Are you providing firewood for them? Or are they going around your property and?
I have quite a bit just stacked up there that's getting seasoned. I pull some from my house so that people have more dry, like hand firewood, but it's just the normal 15 to 8 inch, 15 to 18 inch like pieces of dried firewood to utilize, or maybe some kindling 2x4s or whatever I have for scrap.
When do you open it up for Airbnb? What is the season?
Yeah, so
Typically.
last year we got it online right around May 16th, I want to say, something like that. We haven't posted that it's live yet because we're waiting obviously for this to get settled or not,
Mhm.
but and then last year we ran till about October 15th, but we were using water and it got kind of close to 32 degrees, so we had a couple sketchy nights of getting calls, but got lucky there.
Mhm.
We'll probably not go that late. We probably only go till about October 10th or so, depending on the temperature and stuff like that. But with no water, we could go a little later if we wanted to, I suppose.
In the future, do you see you having more than one of these?
No, it wouldn't really be feasible there, and I wouldn't really want to manage more than one.
So what I'm going to do now is open this up to questions from the audience. Now, this is not a give and take. You talk to us, I'll type stuff, and then the applicant will address it. And
We have them come up to the table.
come up to the table and be as brief as possible, because it's getting 3 tonight. No, that's not why. Anyway,
Is anybody in remote who wants to speak on this? You should raise your hand and we will invite you in. There should be some little hand thing you can put on your screen. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to invite Kirk in. Oops.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I sent you an email, so I'm the neighbor to the south. I know Brad, I like him.
This area.
I did not notice much use last year. So I mean, I knew that they were there, but it didn't bother me. I know Yatsik maybe was bothered a little more. My concern is more for the road, and if it's just Brad doing this, I really don't have a concern. There's another property on the other side of Yatsik that has cutouts for 2 more similar things. And so if this acts as a precedent for those also getting permits, now we have 3 of them that all have access, be accessed up the Tar Box Road hill, which is extremely narrow and has poor visibility and is not extremely safe. So what makes it safe is the small amount of traffic that goes up right now. There's only 6 houses on our end that really routinely go up and down that hill. So like I said, if it stays with just Brad having his camp, no problem. If this invites in more similar camps on the other side, like I said, there's 2 kind of in the works that I would have a problem with.
thank you. Anything from any of the folks here? In that case, any of you guys have further questions? And Chris, do you have anything that you think we should know?
No, I think, if this were to be approved, there's a few conditions we can put in for checks and balances, which help, Brad sort of, make his request a little tighter. Or, you know, take care of any potential concerns. I mean, the only question that we sort of have that's lingering is water, wastewater, how does that get sort of issued? And I think that can get covered easy enough with the Department of Environmental Conservation, you know, since they have jurisdiction in this area. So,
So you can clarify that this falls under a definition of a camp in our regulations, even though it's a camper. It's got wheels. I mean, it's kind
Yeah.
of, it implies that, but that also implies that if you park a camper, like I said, in your yard for one night, you got to get a conditional use permit.
I'm comfortable with it, but I'm not a decision maker. You guys are the
No, I
decision
know.
makers, and we can,
Have you encountered this before, though? With a camper or no? Just
uh,
curious.
we had, the answer is yes, but the camper got removed off the property. So, and it was a large RV. I mean, in our regulations, basically, if you park an RV on your property, it's considered a living, even though it's registered and insured, and it can drive away, it's still considered, you know, potentially a unit per our regulations, which is a little different.
It's a stretch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in this instance, the nature of it's more the proposed use than the actual structure. And how it's getting put together
It's a commercial operation.
to a degree, yep.
Yeah.
Which means it can't be under the definition of camp.
That's, the camp does have that provision, but it's like I've said, it's sort of a mix, it's a little bit of a hybrid of a few different things that sort of come together. Our use table and definitions aren't very good. I've been trying to get those updated for quite a while now. And because of that, we end up having certain holes within, when an applicant comes in with an idea or a request. Sometimes it doesn't fit nicely into the box. And so this one doesn't clearly fit into this box or another box. It's sort of a little bit of a combination. That's why it's a conditional use review. It allows you to look at it and either deny for certain reasons or approve it with additional conditions, you know, from an operational standpoint. So.
So Brad, do you have anything else you want to add?
No, I appreciate your time, and yeah, if there's anything more specific, I have to detail in the application, like formally, I'll do that. Yeah, appreciate everyone's
All
input.
right.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we're going to close this portion of the hearing. Thank you for coming,
Thank
and
you.
you'll hear from us within 45 days.
Okay, thank you very much.
When a decision gets rendered, I'll let you know, and then we have a certain length of time to actually reduce it to writing.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
yeah, if you have any questions, get a hold of me.
Appreciate it.
All right. Marjorie, you're up. Can I ask folks who came in a little bit late, if you haven't signed in, please sign in, and there are 2 different sign-in sheets, so make sure it's the one you're here for.
So should the engineer come up
Yeah.
with me too?
Whoever wants to come up should.
Whoever's presenting.
I'm presenting.
Again, it's a sketch.
Yes. So yes, this is sketch plan. We don't render a decision. We listen to what you tell us. We provide feedback.
Okay, so you just want me to introduce the project?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Marjorie Minot. I live on Boulder Hill. I've lived there for 34 years. And we are seeking to subdivide our land into 3, well, including our own 3 parcels. And I've hired a fine engineering company to help me with this because I don't understand all the details. And I have full trust from them to handle this, and they will answer the questions.
Yeah, so
And your name for the record, please.
Brian Courier, O'Leary Burke. So we're in front of you tonight for a sketch plan application, which is obviously optional in town of Jericho. And the reason is for the subdivision of 44 Boulder Hill Road. It's a 9.35 acre parcel with an existing single family home, roughly halfway up Boulder Hill Road, where the road makes a curve from the northwest to the southeast. Hundreds of feet of frontage, But the issue, or the, reason that we're here tonight, is the parcel is split zoned. So if you ever looked at this area, on the Jericho zoning map, there's, low density, is the vast majority of the parcel, low density residential. And then just the southeast corner, of the parcel is zoned forestry. And if you look at the zoning map, the forestry parcel, I don't think anyone would argue, or this forestry zone is, in my opinion, drawn fairly arbitrarily. It doesn't follow a specific tree line or an elevation, or it's not offset from a specific road. It kind of, the purpose of the district talks about preserving mature forest within the town of Jericho. Why the corner of this parcel was pulled into that zoning district, I think is a different conversation, but here we are. So there are split zoning provisions within the town of Jericho regulations, 3.4. Lots with more than one zoning district. And it says when a lot is proposed for development includes portions in different districts, the following shall apply. And the first one is in regard to use. Essentially, if it's a split zone parcel, allowed uses or conditional uses have to apply where the structure is located within the specific district. If it falls within a split zoning line, it has to adhere to both allowed uses on either side of the line. The second one talks about certain dimensional standards. If your structure is located in the low density residential district, for instance, you have to adhere to frontage and setback requirements, types of dimensional standards within the low density residential district. It doesn't talk about minimum lot size, which is another dimensional standards defined by the town. The low density residential district is 3 acres and the forestry district is 10 acres. So it's a pretty substantial change for a split zone parcel. And in talking to Chris, the town has historically viewed split zone parcels. They take a conservative approach and they've used minimum lot size for the more restrictive zoning district. So taking that stance, this lot, though, and you can see the zoning district is drawn in that red line kind of diagonal on the south corner. It's 1.19 acres of the parcel. The low density residential is 8.16 acres of the parcel. Using that methodology, this parcel is an existing nonconformity because it's 9 acres. If it's split zone and you say that the minimum lot size for the more restrictive zoning district applies, then they would have to be 10 acres to be a conforming lot within the town. So basically it would not be subdividable. Now, if we did a boundary line adjustment with a neighbor and remove the forestry district from our lot, making it, an acre smaller, essentially we could do a subdivision, which in my opinion, losing an acre on your parcel to be able to subdivide, doesn't really pass the smell test in my opinion. I think that there's room here for either the board to potentially make a different assumption of where minimum lot size should land, whether it should be with the other dimensional standards in the district where the structure is located, or whether or not a conservative approach should be taken and the 10-acre forestry district should govern for minimum lot size. So we have tons of frontage, plenty of acreage to satisfy the low density residential minimum lot size, but due to the arbitrarily drawn forestry district and a historical interpretation of a regulation made by the town, it kind of, in my opinion, is a little bit of a predicament. I believe that this lot, whether it's 2 new lots or 1 new lot, I think a subdivision should be warranted in this area. What we're showing in front of you here is a traditional subdivision. Obviously, three lots that would be meeting the minimum lot size in the low density residential district. The building envelopes are all located within the low density residential district. And again, the regulations don't say explicitly what minimum lot size should carry on a split zone parcel.
Questions or comments from board members?
Could you bring up, mention that the boundary adjustment scenario, just as an example of how you could resolve it? Not that we want to, I'm just saying that it adds some logic to it, because you said it's a total of 9.35 acres. So if you got rid of the forestry, you would have 8 acres.
Right.
So you wouldn't have 333.
We wouldn't have three,
But
but
you could
we
do a
would be
swap
able
with
to do
somebody.
a 2-lot subdivision, which,
Yeah.
you know, if that's the route we have to take.
Yeah.
You know,
I get it. I understand. I get
Yeah.
the it's arbitrary to some extent. I know a lot of zoning district maps will follow distance from a road or a property line. In this case, it looks like they just followed a tree line, maybe from aerial photo, something.
But there's nothing
Maybe.
that we can do about it.
Exactly.
yeah,
I'm
I understand it is where it
Yeah.
is, but you
Yeah.
know, I say that for context.
Yeah, I get it.
You know,
I
and
get
the purpose of the forestry district is to preserve mature forest. I can't say that this line on this parcel is necessarily doing that. I'd say the vast majority of it is within the LDR district where the intent is low density residential. In my opinion, that's more meeting the intentions of the regulations than not allowing a subdivision here.
Right.
And with the boundary line adjustment, we have to have a willing participant, which is a
Right.
guarantee
Get
by
that.
any stretch.
Other board questions, comments? In that case, again, I will open it up to members of the public and if you want to speak, state your name for the record loudly and clearly, and
Or raise your hand if you're remote.
boy, this is easier than I thought.
No,
I'll raise my hand.
And your name is?
My name is Lisa Rector.
you have to come up to the table, please.
Come up to the table.
Does that mean I leave?
I just want to point out that on the Adams property, which is across the street, there was a PUD done that put a house that was only with 3 acres of land in a 10-acre zone. So we already have precedent for a split lot with the property literally across the street from the Minots. Where, and I don't know if you can pull that up, but that was, that actually had far more land in the forestry district, and they were allowed to do a PUD and put 2 houses on a 10-acre parcel. So we already have some precedent there. I do want to thank the Minots for thinking, I don't know if they did this purposely, but we have had water issues, and I want to say I appreciate the placement of the lots because they're placed in a way that I believe will minimize the stormwater impacts on the road. As somebody who sits right below them, that's a concern for me, and I think they've done an excellent job in taking advantage of the existing stormwater infrastructure that's there to minimize the impacts to neighbors. So that's it.
Thank you. Any other members of the public here or?
I'd like to speak again.
Let's just see if.
Hello?
Who's this?
Yes, this is Christian Miller. My wife Pascal and I own the property uphill on 70 Bulger Hill Road from the Minots. And I just had a couple of clarifying questions so we understand this process a little bit better, if I could ask. The application states that all the proposed structures will be in a low density part of the property, i.e. not in the part that's currently labeled forestry. But we don't see any proposed structures on the sketch map. So are there restrictions on where the new structures can be placed?
We'll get to the answer
You have
after
another
you've asked the
question?
questions.
Ask all your questions at once.
Oh,
Pascal.
okay. The second question is that lot 3 is on the sketch map, is currently about 60% zoned as forestry. And if the proposal is approved, does that entire lot get rezoned as low-density residential?
Okay, and was there one more or is that it?
That's it.
Okay,
Let's see.
other questions either on Zoom or in person?
And if you're remote, please raise your hand so I can invite you in.
All right.
You
Um,
Marjorie to come back up or
I was gonna
go.
request answers to the question, unless you wanted.
Yeah, no.
Okay. So, the second question, does lot 3 get rezoned? The answer is no, it is what it is. But the first question, are there restrictions on where new structures can be placed?
Yes, so what we're showing is building envelopes. So basically a building envelope, the structure can be sited anywhere within the building envelope. With the absence of natural features, wetlands, streams, those sort of things on the site. Basically just the setbacks, except for on lot 3, we don't show the building envelope extending into the forestry zone, though that lot is longer. The building envelope is entirely within the low density residential piece, and the split zone part of it, though zoning won't change. If we were able to come back with a plat for this subdivision, I'd likely make it so only one lot was split zoned. We have one lot that's split zone now. Split zone parcels are not preferred, whether they're in a regulatory document or not, due to things like we're here for tonight. So I would likely change the lot configuration, so only one lot would be split zone. So we have one split zone parcel now, we would have one split zone parcel when we're not.
Chris, if you would mind,
No,
or who's handling,
We're not doing any back and forth, I'm sorry.
So Pascal, if you have a question, you can direct it to me later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Marjorie, you wanted to,
Yes, I have to come back. I just want to state that when I bought the property, the forestry area was all farmland. There were no trees except the boundary. I allowed the trees to grow up on that whole back parcel to control the water coming off the hill. So it is forested now, but it's all brand new growth.
okay,
Just wanted you to know that. And secondly, where the Millers live, when the Gates were living there, when they applied for their permit, my lot had to give them land so they could actually have a driveway because they didn't have any access to that land.
Yeah.
So there have been some interesting changes going on with cooperation on the road already.
Chris, can you respond to the statement about the PUD? Or is that?
I'd have to
go back. and
I'd
look
have to look at, but
Okay.
the reality is.
I
in a
wasn't
10 acre
sure if that
zone,
was something.
if you have a PUD, you can do it in a 10 acre zone. You can have a lot as small as I believe a half acre in the forestry district for a PUD. Well, actually, I can tell you right now.
Yeah.
So creating a smaller lot through the PUD regulations are allowed. And in this instance, you'd have to have open space. The application being referenced, I was not party to, so the exact details of it, I don't know, but in that area, if you did a PUD, yeah, you could have a lot as small as half an acre.
Okay,
So anything above a half acre would still be conforming to the PUD regulations in that instance, so. And in this case, you really can't do a PUD because it's basically bisected. And the way we traditionally look at it is you need a 10 acre zone, so this is 9.3 acres.
so we don't render a decision tonight because it's sketch plan, but I would encourage you to look at the option of a boundary line adjustment. I mean, we definitely need to look closely at the regulations, but
What I'd like to do is,
Please.
because we need to deliberate on the first application, is when we're in deliberations, we can have a little bit of talk on that, and then basically I can get back to the applicant, on sort of the board. Here's some guidance,
Okay,
because you guys are the decision maker. I mean, that's really kind of what they're looking for.
all right.
Yeah, and whether a PUD, makes sense here too. I know it's a similar type question. Except for, in the sense that if it's seen as a non-conformity now. If a PUD was done and we took a weighted average of each area, whether, if there's an acre in the forestry. That's a 10 lot size, and then what's in the LDR, the 8 acres, it'd be a 3 lot size. So if we looked at it with weighted averages through the PUD regulations, and included 50% open space as required, as part of the PUD regs, we would then propose 2 lots. Because unfortunately it's 2.8 acres if you go through that exercise, as far as density, so we don't reach the 3rd lot. But if a PUD was allowed to move forward here, the lots that would be produced would meet the minimum lot area of a PUD and basically shed that nonconformity that's here now, which should be an objective of the town as well.
If there are no further questions, we're gonna close this portion. Sorry. I'm sorry, we had the public comment.
Public comments closed.
All right. Thank you very much. We have one piece of old business. And that is approving the minutes of March 13th. So do I hear a motion for that?
Sure, I'll make a motion.
There was one.
Yeah,
There was just the comment, I gotta pull it up here. It was just a comment that I was quoted as saying that it was my opinion that houses ought to be placed in the building envelope. That's not what I said. But it's obvious, that's obvious, but my comment was that we should make an effort or impose a condition to ensure that they're put in, something like that. Just add, you know what I'm saying? Chris knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I can change, I can make that amended change.
Yeah. I mean, it's an obvious comment the way it's written, but that's not what I meant. I was concerned about the small building envelopes just being pretty crowded, so.
Yeah, but and the way that got dealt with was basically through the deed to be developed for the lot. And essentially the restriction.
Right.
Declaring all improvements they do happen within the envelope, not outside the envelope.
Yeah.
So,
I've been finding a lot of properties where after the fact, finding out that they're not in the envelope. So that's,
So
they're where your
with-
septic is.
with that change.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Yep.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Steve, you can't vote since so thank you.
All right, I am going to adjourn the public hearing and ask folks to please go home and watch the Maple Leafs.
It's still 0-0. If I knew you were wearing that, I would have worn my Bruins.
I checked.